It's that time of day, 4 p.m. Bob Marley Sunday rolling away. I'm in Manitoba. Guest today joining us from Edmonton, Alberta, Nathaniel Garneau, Cultivation Manager from a brand that I'm suspecting safely many of you know, Freedom Cannabis. And I've connected with Nathaniel over the last few weeks, as with any other guests. And what a spectacular story, hitting up their website, finding a little bit of information, doing that research myself, and then connecting just recently here with Nathaniel for the first time. And with no further ado, Nathaniel, I'll allow you to introduce yourself and represent Freedom Cannabis. Tell us a little bit about Alberta, the market, where Freedom stands, and the major player that you are, man. Thank you.
Okay. Freedom Cannabis. Yeah, we're a medium to large scale grower. We employ about 100 people. We're a garden first brand, so everything we put out is all about flower. We don't really like to share anything, too out there, but yeah, Edmonton based. Everything we grow is indoor, hydroponic, in rock wool, fully organic mothers in soil, living soil. And yeah, we're all about doing things the right way, start to finish. And everything we've been producing the last year has been knocking it out the park. If you see our products in stores, Secret Formula is familiar to you, Slurricane, Skywalker. Um, these are the amazing strains we grow, and for the most part, 25 plus. If you're looking for heavy indicas, that's our specialty. If you're looking for something a little bit more sativa, uplifting, relaxing, you can check out our mimosa, or in some markets, it's Tutti Frutti. But yeah, we're Alberta based, and we're very proud of sharing other micro brands. We package for 20 to 30 micros, and we're happy to distribute for them. Some Manitoba locals that you might know of are Prairie Trichomes. That's my favorite. But yeah, absolutely, that is Freedom Cannabis, and I'm the master grower there. And as far as other teams there, we're 25 growers, and we run 10 large size indoor rooms. Um, yeah, we're well known right now as a brand, and we've been awarded 3 nominations for the Grope Awards here in September. So really looking forward to that.
Excellent. Well, I can attest to the Skywalker, man. That's a beautiful product right there. I was able to find it last weekend prior to heading to a music festival, and it was a beautiful little package for the pre-roll kit. And I shared one with my roommate, and another one I shared at the festival, man. And definitely top quality, perfect price range, and again, like you mentioned there in that 25, knocked it out of the park though. So I look forward to exploring it again. Some of what I do, I take pride in the professional reviews that I try to share, and a lot of times that's about the only time I revisit products. Generally, I like to try to keep them going in variety, but when I find something good like that, man, I know that. So I'll be hitting it at least a couple of more times before I bring that information out, and finding a little bit more, reconnecting with you if there's anything special about those strains or anything. But you did touch on something I wanted to mention, as far as Freedom being a major packaging hub, which is obvious. So I was out in Alberta for the first 4 months of the new year of 2022, sorry, and then now back to Manitoba. Prior to that as well, I mean, most retail shops you visit in Manitoba, Freedom Cannabis is a discussion that comes up. So, I mean, major player across the coast that would definitely appear. I'm also a bud tender, so I mean the familiarity with your brands and the brands that you represent, right? I guess in the Freedom family. I mean, it's almost like there's no end in sight. With that being said, as far as managing all of the a majority of the packaging, and then looking at other when you're looking at these top quality products, your genetics. So is Freedom Cannabis as well like a lab? Are you or like a nursery? Are you guys like managing a nursery production
Yeah,
that way as well? Yeah.
yeah, we manage our own nursery, and some LPs we can support. We're nowhere near the scale of Mother Labs, something like that. But one or two of our micros, specifically, they use our genetics, so we run nursery cycles for them and send them off veg plants ready to flip. And it's one piece. Hopefully we can scale a little bit larger and help out some other micros. That seems like one of the biggest problems for micros is they have the technique down, but they can't bring new genetics in. They can't they don't necessarily have something that's market proven and tested, right? So it's experimenting, and it's harder to sell those crops, those small batch crops. So it's something we're proud of there.
Very cool, man. So how about brand marketing regulations in Alberta? How has that been for Freedom from the get-go? You know what I mean? Is the lightning lessening of, or has it been more, have they stricken anything that with that regard, and with some of the leveraging tools that you use, like that your company uses to get around that?
It's definitely opening up a little bit. There was a time where we couldn't even talk to retailers. Now, we're a little bit more well known. But Alberta is an interesting place because it's the big chain stores. It's almost a pay to play scheme. You need to invest in their marketing programs, their data analytics, to be put on their shelves to some extent. So it's a challenging space, and it's definitely a different scenario in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and the Northern Territories, where you get to actually speak directly to the stores. You get to build that relationship. You can actually train bud tenders how to sell your product. This is the terpene profile. This is what this means. Um, don't give this to somebody who's looking for uh, a nice day walking the golf course, right? This is like late night stuff, or you know you want to be able to share what your product is, because there's nothing worse than that first time experience. Oh, this is exactly not what I wanted. I was stuck in the couch. I wanted to be out and about, and
Yeah.
well, I needed to head home. Um, so that's a big difference, and you see that in the Manitoba stores. We talk to over 100 stores a week, and it's this case of, well, what do we need? What do you guys need to sell our product a little bit better? And it's been growing. So every month we're doing better and better in Manitoba, and yeah, it's good. I'm glad to hear that our reputation is growing there, and we're a little bit more well known than we used to be.
Definitely, man. I mean, growth is a good thing for sure, especially in the cannabis industry. Like when you're obviously familiar to that becoming somewhat of a monster that Freedom has, and continuing octopusing, I guess, that way. Almost another tactic, I guess, as far as the industry survival goes, and then playing that part in as many of the economies as possible. Not a false strategic move by any means, either which way. How about with that? While we're on the topic of that, so brand marketing, what about cannabis sponsorships and music events? How has the music scene or live entertainment scene been in Alberta? How are the provincial regulations towards that? Have you seen an increase with cannabis brand sponsorships to events, or the introduction of cannabis friendly consumption areas with licensed events, anything like that?
Yeah, this last month in Edmonton, Folk Fest was on. There was some cannabis sponsorship. Um, it was much better than previous years, where hey, you had maybe a booth put up, but there was no consumption area. This year there was a consumption area. And the only issue there was it's a pop up retailer, and they only have so much inventory allowed. So they were sold out in the first hour. Um, so,
Right.
it seems like a wasted space by, day two. Um, and I have heard that there's been a bunch of other events throughout the province. Yeah, Stampede even did have a cannabis area. So,
Nice.
um, that's a big deal, and it's a big shift, because Alberta was totally against it at one point, and I feel that by next year, we'll have opened up, and it'll be as well regarded as a beer lounge, or yeah.
Yep, the gardens or however. Absolutely, man. Same deal here. I've been to some events this summer, lightening up for sure, extending even to the point of media pass coverage, and you know what I mean, invitations that way, being a median to a cannabis friendly, predominant cannabis audience. and just kind of meshing that again, the leverages that we can use to kind of bring and showcase the cannabis culture. So obviously the North American Weed Tour, the Canadian Cannabis Podcast, being able to attend and restream and share that type of information to obviously, again, just demonstrating and destigmatizing that the general public, which is definitely not bound by any gender, race, ethnicity, what you, however, name it, right? The way we kind of launched the podcast is to stand for what it is. And so it's quite important that way, just to see that kind of coming around. There has been a bit of a mix to that. And I'm going to build this one up to the next regulation, a little bit of regulation talk regarding the smoke glass, because that's the important portion of it, with public safety and security being number one, ultimately, obviously from the Cannabis Act and all regulations regardless. So we have in Manitoba recently an increase in robbery attempts or success. And then at the same time, gaining attention last week to the smoke glass atmosphere was a discussion with the last guest, actually, out of Ontario. And then a few days later, Alberta lifted the smoke glass moving forward in the safety and security. And I like to look at that. They kind of highlight each other. So we have the introduction now in Manitoba as well as a mobile cannabis unit that's been attending at least a couple of music events. So participating similarly to the food truck licensing. And then, of course, obviously the licensed event as it stands and the event organizers, including cannabis-friendly areas of sorts. The one that I had the best at, Soca Reggae Fest, by all means, man, like totally friendly. Checked your pockets, no problem that way. Just do not consume with alcohol in the alcohol garden. But so obviously breaking those barriers. And then, I mean, it makes sense. So if you got smoke glass creating a potential security threat and at the same time moving towards public pop-up, like you mentioned, with limited supplies on hand, where obviously the concern seems to be keeping up with clientele as opposed to being robbed while out on the road. So hopefully fortunate, you know what I mean? It looks optimistic for regulation changes that way, but you're going to bring another whole big thing, man, and that's the consumption lounging. So how's that been as far as Alberta lifting recently? Is it something you've connected with over the 3 years with your retailers carrying your product? Has there been something you've experienced your brand ever taken a big hit from a store robbery, something like that? Where are you at with that smoke glass atmosphere?
You know, the smoke glass atmosphere, it's a real detractor, I find. We're making this a cannabis should be open to everyone. And I was concerned at first because they put this in saying we don't want kids to see it. But it stigmatizes it. It's not a normalized element there. So we should get rid of the smoke glass. I think most retailers in Alberta anyway are at this point, we've invested so much money in it. Let's just leave it on. I don't even want to pay a contractor to rip it off. But as far as, criminal element, it's very rare. It's one of these things where stores are handling way less cash than they would have. In BC, there were the illegal stores for a long time, or the gray market stores. They were taking in cash all the time. There were robberies very often. I think some provinces, Alberta being one, they went all the way to the farthest end possible to make it safe and reduce those criminal activities. Manitoba has a little bit more freedom in how they operate, and I think that is still one of the pieces that, there's a line, and we obviously don't want to make it too hard to work. But at the same time, I think those security pieces, the smoke glass was one of those things that it may have deterred criminal activity, but at the same time, any adult can walk in there and see how much inventory you had. So I think there's a line there, and it's probably time for us to scale back and find out what that is. But again, rural cannabis stores, I think, will always be at this this risk, right?
Yeah.
If there is desperation in the community, then there's going to be some risk to robberies, right? That's just my view on it. I think it's a really small piece, and I hope we don't have to see it in the news too often. I hope it's not going to be a recurring thing every week.
Absolutely, man. For sure, not at all. So, and I ask, I like to talk about it. I talk with customers at the shop quite often about it as well. And most times, it's actually led to people pulling at the door and then being surprised we're open there. You know what I mean? Even regardless of neon open signs, the construction process for the store owners, the amount of lapse time in licensing to actually opening, and there are still people that come in the first time after 4 months of being open that walk by, and again, like they that adds to that atmosphere, right? Where it just even almost keeps the general public at bay sometimes. So but I mean, obviously, yeah. So it does what it does, and it's there for a purpose. So I think it's a great one to talk about, though. It's definitely it's obviously taken shape, right? I mean, provinces are responding to it. It made national news. Why not? It's Canadian Cannabis Podcast. Talk about what's hot at the same time, and then I mean, at the same, I mean, how's the Alberta retail market overall at this point? Has it reached a saturation point similar to maybe some of the discussions I've had with Manitoba? I know here in Manitoba over the past 6 months, as far as I understand, it's definitely slowed down when looking at the amount of licenses issued from the time. Otherwise, how's Alberta looking? Is it still booming or?
It is still booming. We still have that 3 to 5% growth per month. Now, as far as Edmonton, this general metro area, I think we're saturated. I don't think we should be throwing in another 100 stores around. I think the stores that are here need to stabilize. In this area, I've seen 10 stores close in the last 3 months. So some locations are just not going to be viable, and when you spread that out, it's probably similar in Manitoba. Although you're probably a couple months behind as far as that same trend, just population wise. But
right.
Yeah, I'd say we're at a healthy point, and 3 to 5% growth is probably where we should keep it. Let's not open another 100 stores.
Awesome. Now, with regard to the rec talk and looking at recreational cannabis, Freedom Cannabis obviously being a player in that. Medical cannabis also is a component to the Freedom Front, excuse me to call that, if that's all right with you there, but still, I mean, it is what it is, obviously, and looking at that, taking that in. So how comparatively so is that? Is the medical market a little bit different? Are you cultivating both? Is it the master grower producing medical grade and as well rec grade cannabis?
For us, we see them as the same thing. Our product is all medical grade as far as microbial concerns. We always make sure we're testing under that 5,000 parts per million. Most of our crops are less than 100 parts per million on any anaerobic bacteria or anything like that. We're built for medical. We're a GMP equivalent facility, so that means it's hospital grade or better on everything. Wow. And we really took care to that when we were starting up. This is going to be for medical specifically, and as things evolved and the market changed, we had to go to recreational because medical is just a declining segment. Again, because most medical consumers can go to their store, purchase that same product recreationally. It's more convenient. It's a lot of the time it's easier to get what you need. There's some trade-offs to that. It's very hard to find CBD products in stores. They're just always sold out. But yeah, when we're looking at growing a crop, it's always the same quality, and we, us as medical patients, we register with the company, and we want to be able to get the absolute best product we can. To that, you can find Freedom product on Mendo Cannabis, Medicinamus, and we're there with all the other big guys. We're looking at opening our own medical cannabis portal in the next 6 to 9 months for general public. But it's something that it's a lot of work to undertake, and it's just like running a retail store. It's how stretched do you want your business to be, right?
quite a team there too. I mean, a lot of teamwork involved there, man. A lot of professional and educated people, even by the looks of it. Again, on the website, and like rolling pretty steady there. It's quite impressive. So that's why I asked some of the questions there, looking at this and dropping terms, even like strategizing, just because obviously there's some work you can anticipate to come from Freedom and looking at the overall umbrella of the Canadian industry. And it's definitely a fantastic time, man. Like so much cool stuff going on that way. Is there a particular strain so dear to you, man, that you want to tell people like is for sure like hella fire? That's the one that, you know what I mean, knocking it out of the park for you, whether it's for any reason, like, or is it, and then I'll, yeah, we'll answer that one. I've got another question just regarding that. Yeah.
So the slurricane that we produce is very close to my heart. It's something we've been through over 40 crop rotations on, just to get it perfectly dialed in. It is what we're putting forward as the top 12 dried flower product in the country.
Awesome.
You can get it in our reserve SKUs. Look for the absolute best crops of our slurricane are under the reserve line. And it is a do-si-do purple punch cross.
Nice.
Very grapey. It still has that myrcene and the limonene as undertones, but it's a banger. It's absolutely phenomenal. You can get it from 28 all the way up to 33%. Our last milled lot is at 37%.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, we're just shocked when these results come back to the point where we send it to multiple labs. The milled test numbers are real shocking to me. But again, we're ripping all the stem out. It's still sugar leaf. It's still good stuff. Blended with full buds. So, yeah, we're pretty proud of these numbers, and it's one of those things like, how many labs do you go to? You gotta trust the marketplace, right? We're shocked that we could even grow that stuff. But yeah,
milled product definitely taken off the shelves. I find we get milled product in at this point regardless, almost. And I mean, you know what I mean, a couple of cones or some blunt wraps to go, and they seem to be no problem. The convenience of it, quarters, whatever, and like I say, yeah, man, boom, gone. But I know I'm definitely going to get you connected if you haven't already with Amon. I know he's always picking my brain, the store owner, Bob and Amon, always picking on my brain on what to get. So I'm always telling him, yeah, look, like we've got their cards, or our brand rep's been in. Let's follow up with them. They're coming on the show. So I mean, the ideal situation, obviously, that will be, if you haven't already, definitely going to get you in touch with Amon. I know he's taken my word for that on several occasions for what we carry in, and seems to fly pretty quick. Again, I've had the Skywalker, and I'm going to be looking. I've heard excellent things about the Slurricane. Like, don't get me wrong there. It doesn't. It flies. The flower product for sure flies. With that being said, now the honing in to the markets and tailoring, getting it to that top shelf level. The awards coming up. Dialing it in with the work and the hours put into that, I mean, the passion you're talking about, having that plant connectivity. Is there a particular strain you're growing right now that's the terpene top shelf by chance, that's just knocking out of the park, like total terpenoids or the terpene profile, or is it something genetically you guys are wanting to look at tailoring as far as some of the clientele now, and even I find it the more generally cannabis educated that our clientele, foot traffic at the store comes, it can get a little tricky sometimes, man. People are starting to understand a little bit more of what their body is responding to these brands, right, and these strains. So is that something that's going to be looked at as far as the genetics, or do across the board tailoring that down right to that kind of to that stuff, man?
Yeah, so the flavor profiles and those pheno hunts, they take a long time to execute. So it'll probably be a year before we have something we absolutely love. But right now we're trying to work secret formula in with a bunch of other strains, and we're doing some reversals and seed rounds, so that we can pheno hunt something a little bit more flavorful, like a mimosa, for example, with that clementine, lemon grapefruit kind of profile. We want to combine that with the secret formula, which is it's a little bit lemony, but it's more lemon and lavender. those two together would be a phenomenal product, and we think they would still hit those 25 plus ranges. So, you're getting something that's a rainbow of flavors, as opposed to, hey, I'm just getting something gassy, or I'm just getting something in that range. For us, Secret Formula performs really well on the terpene profile. It's usually a 3% and up. We have had some as low as 2.5. We had some 3.7, 3.8. Again, it's environmentals. You got to play with it and get it exactly right for those terpenes to express. But yeah, that's the one I'm proudest of. That Secret Formula.
Cool.
Lineage on it is it's a Do-si-do and White Fire. So White Fire is well known in the past as a World Cup winner and things like that. And yeah, the Do-si-do just makes people happy. So good indicas.
Getting near the end. Does Freedom take care of, are you doing any processing? So, I mean, in the vape carts, are you looking to bust into that? Have you had any, are you looking into that area of?
Yeah, so Freedom partnered with a company. It's called Cannabis Tolling Solutions. Some gray market brands that you might be aware of, like Kind Selections, and the Tuna Room guys. So Tuna Room Genetics is one of the partners there, and what we're trying to do with that is Freedom knows that we can't be an expert in everything, so we're bringing in a partnership with CTS, and they do vape carts, hash extract, live rosin.
Awesome.
We want to do everything. One of the products that we want to release is a crop wholesome 5. So all 5 elements. So you get a milled, you get a pre-roll, you'll get a dried flower, you'll get some hash, you'll get at least one vape cart. We want to be able to give people a rainbow of opportunity there. You want to be able to taste that crop, every bit of it, whether it's absolutely the top cola, or hey, these are smalls that are still really high in terpenes. Smalls sometimes come back 2% higher in terpenes than the tops do. They get a little bit better expression. So yeah, that's something we're partnering with them on. Cannabis Tolling Solutions. The CEO there is Andrew Friedman. You might know him from Terpenes for Wellbeing. He's a best-selling Amazon bestseller. Yeah, so Freedom is all about partnerships and working with others. We want the best stuff for everyone we work with. That includes micros and small producers that are looking for market access, or even just help packaging their stuff. Freedom tries to do it all, but we do things a little bit slower than most big companies.
Beautiful. You plugged the dude here, man. And Andrew Friedman. Is it Andy Friedman, the connoisseur?
Yeah, the cannabis sommelier, Andy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a wild, small world, and you can't really so when the first few weeks I was in Calgary, started January, mutually acquainted through the Respect My Region US crew. Very well-known individual. They set me up with him. I connected with him for a couple of meetings, and we chatted out that area. Very cool dude, man. I follow him, on Instagram. Awesome stuff.
Awesome. Small world. Yeah. Andy's moved to Edmonton, and he's a Calgary guy for sure. But for this opportunity, he's like, you guys are my family. We're moving in. So he's tucked right in, ready to go.
Awesome. Well, that's such a high note. Small world, man. It's such a cool thing that way too. Now, to kind of wrap it all up and bring it to the end, I have more guests coming from the West over the next few weeks as well, here in the Prairie provinces. You're one of your favorites, one of mine, man, Prairie Trichomes. I'll be reconnecting with Adam Carrot. He originally kicked it all off in the original 420 episode, but I'll be bringing him back on. I'm going to be highlighting some stuff with him, and I'm going to be in that neck of the woods next week, so I'll probably be hitting their Neepwa shop, and maybe I'll find that slurricane there while I'm out that way too, man. But working on a few things on trying to get out to the West. Site visits is one. We have a couple of invitations that definitely don't want to put off for too long, but be looking at that December, January timeframe, as well as an exciting situation that could unfold with some of the cannabis education I'll be helping out with in Manitoba, possibly coming out and looking at taking in a few days out in that Mary Jane Manor, if you haven't heard of that spot between Calgary and Edmonton. So let's keep in touch, man. Let's link up. I'll get our information reshared. I mean, after we're done here today, anyone looking for Nathaniel to connect direct, don't hesitate. Reach out. The information will be in our interview description. I'll drop some handles in there, email, however you'd like to be contacted, man. Don't worry about that. We'll find you out on LinkedIn, everywhere that we put this out. And I'm going to be heading off. I got to sling buds for the night, but I'm at least going to be spending half that time sharing this stuff out and getting the good information out. So I appreciate your time today, Nathaniel. Very, very educational. It's a good thing New Freedom has on the go. I think a lot of Canadians can really look forward to that for the markets. We didn't even get into international markets, man. So maybe we'll see where things are down the line. But with that being said, I think most people know who I am. Reach out to me whenever you want. I'll let Nathaniel close us off here today with some kind words. And yeah, man. So take it away.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Everybody enjoy some freedom.